rumor, I guess I just ordered checks, and I heard rumors that we're gonna change all the routing number thing now.
I'll ask that, I hope it's
So,
just another country.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So,
good.
I'm like,
You would think they would tell you.
I mean, I only, yeah.
You don't know, I gotta go bank it. So I'll ask them to take it out.
So those guys are, maybe we should sit down and figure out how.
It looks low. But there's a handle underneath it.
There you go, ah, there we go.
My chimney's
I've seen more than they yet. Last 3 days and they haven't last year.
Move over, the crowd.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the meeting with public comment. Any public comment? Yes, Win?
I just wanted to give you guys an update. Last night we had our 10th annual 10-year anniversary of the DUI Task Force Super Bowl party. It was a great success. We had 90 kids from the school, from middle school and high school. I think we had 54 high school kids and the rest were middle school kids. In attendance, we had a lot of, I think we had 15 chaperones from law enforcement officers to their family, a bunch of other little kids in there. Obviously, some of our staff brought their children so they could be participating, but great time. Ate a little bit of food. They ate 25 pizzas. And we had to make a couple trips to Bob's to get more soda because we weren't expecting 90. And with the weather the way it was a lot of fun, great success. Utilized 2 gyms. I think your daughter was.
Yeah, I had a bunch of kids there and they had a great time.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
On a TV.
Great time. And
Nice.
I want to say thanks again for the donation to help us out with that. It was greatly appreciated. And hopefully the kids had a good enough time. They'll come back next year and things will be cool. And it was, I think it was a very positive event. We did have a PT contest, tag team PT contest. It was kind of fun. And so it was a good time, So I just want to share that, say thanks again for all the help on that, so.
Thanks, Win.
Thank you.
Yes, Debbie?
I would just like to thank the commissioners for the board training Thursday night. I've talked to a lot of people. Thank you. We all learned a lot. And I feel dumb for some of the things we didn't know, but now we know. So thank you very much for hosting that.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for attending.
Thanks.
Oh, I gotta get some clarification. Was notified, Julie Dewing sent me an email saying that the Senate will be hearing 156 tomorrow. She says 9 to 10 in room 405, but Nanette said, Nanette gave me a time of 3 p.m. in room 405. So I'm gonna check and see which one's actually correct. So and I'll forward that on to you. So I don't know if you're familiar or paid attention to it. It did pass a second reading 100 to 0. Third reading was 99 to 0. So I'm pretty happy about that, considering the fact that there's some representatives that expressed their desire that they were not going to vote in favor of it, and they did. So it's gone through very well. So, but I'll let you know on the Senate tomorrow. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Approval
approval of minutes for January 28th, 2019.
I'll move to approve those minutes as submitted.
Second motion.
Motion been made, second approved minutes of January 28th, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Go on to the Commissioners' Community Update. Let's see, I attended the Solid Waste Board, the THS Board, the Union Caucus Management Team meeting, and the board training at the Senior Citizens.
I also attended the board training. We had 17 RSVP and 35 showed up, which is a great problem to have. We had it at the senior center. There was plenty of space. We had Commissioner Andy Hunthausen come to do kind of the nuts and bolts, and then Allison Costo, our extension agent, took off on how to run a meeting, do's and don'ts, parliamentary procedure, and they both were stupendous. They did a great job. So any trainings you need, you've got somebody in-house here that is superb. The caucus went very well, I'm pleased to say. And I testified on a bill for DNRC that was related to the Johnny Crow amicus brief that we filed to allow some habitat restoration in the Elkhorns. And we won in district court in about 9 to 10 months. The amicus was decided in September and October, I can't remember which. But anyway, it sailed through very quickly. And that committee actually went into executive session during the right after the testimony, and it passed unanimously to grant more funding for the Good Neighbor Authority, which will help local governments to have a stronger voice in getting some of our timber managed in the forest. So that was a highlight. That's it.
Okay, I also attended the Solid Waste Board meeting, the county board's training at the Senior Center, caucus for the Sheriff's Union Negotiation, and also spoke with Bill Stecker from Montana Department of Transportation regarding the letter that we sent to have signage placed on Highway 285 from the bunkhouse, or from the bunkhouse up to 285 for the slow-moving traffic of the Amish. So they're moving forward with that. I think that's a great thing. Protect those folks and let them know that that's out there. So it's moving forward. He's going to stay in contact with us to let us know how things are going.
I think we should also mention that during our office hours, Kyle stopped by to say hi. We didn't do any county business, but it was nice to see you, and come and say hi anytime.
Letter from the Department of the Interior. BLM is conducting oil and gas lease sale, eastern Montana. Montana Department of Transportation letter for the amount for 2019 for the new gas tax for the Bridge and Road Safety and Accountability Program. Looks like we'll be getting $48,022.95 for 2019. Go to roads. Letter from the Montana Business Assistance Connection, MBAC. Montana Business Assistance Connection Incorporated reports the fourth quarter ended December 31st for Brattleboro County revolving loan fund being managed by MBAC. Restitution from Bill Flanner in the amount of $632.52. Several monthly magazines here also. Have claims. The amount of $47,334.66.
And reviewed the claims and move that we pay the claims in the amount of $47,334.66.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to pay claims in said amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Move on to our 10:15 and Jenny Klaus, Broadway Health Center CFO, update on community hospital.
This is our December 31st, 2018 financial packet that was presented at our public board meeting last Thursday on January 31st. Just to run through the first couple of pages is just a memo. There's statistics of where we sit with who's in the facility. We've got 18 long-term care residents. We saw 202 clinic visits over the month of December, 77 ER visits, 48 CT scans with 11 mammos, 4 ultrasounds. We ended the month with 37 days cash unencumbered on hand. The accounts receivable is sitting right at $1 million at the end of December. It's under $1 million now. Accounts payable of 141. Long-term debt at the end of December was 1.486, so 1.4 million. We continue to make about $35,000 a month in long-term debt payments. Overall gross patient revenue for December was $480,000, with a net revenue of $400,000. Operating expenses for that month were $550,000. We continue to, many of you have seen there's a pledge out there for, we had an anonymous donor he's asking for a match to give us $100,000. So we kicked that off in December. Pledges went out across the county. To date, we've collected a little over $14,000 in that. And so you'll continue to see that over the next few months, try to get that match from our donor. Year to date, we're running at a $450,000 loss through the end of December. In this financial packet, kind of one of the good pages to look at is page 12. This gives you kind of some project updates that we're going on. This is not so much financial as things that we're working on or working towards. Something the community will see happen in the next few months is every 3 years we're required to do a community health needs assessment survey. So about 1,000 residents randomly will be chosen and they'll receive a survey, and this is their opportunity to speak to the services they want to see. So be watching for those, or if you hear of anybody that gets one, please encourage them to return that. And then we'll have the results of that hopefully by the end of June. We do have some representation, so I think some people have seen these, but it's your opportunity. And we'll continue to do this every month so that you can get the information that's most current and up to date.
Maybe just to expand a little bit on the $100,000 gift, what we'd like to do is have that matched, and the donor would like to see another $200,000 raised to match that $100,000 for a total of $300,000.
Which is kind of where we'll usually end up coming short. We didn't get the mill levy this year, as well as just what we give out in uncompensated care. So that was kind of the push for that. But otherwise, continue to come in, see, read to the patients, and visit.
Thank you.
If I may, Jenny, how's our charity care for those who aren't able to pay their bills? Is that going up, going down? What's the trend looking like for that?
It's going up because just the way the regulations have changed, it's required to put it on your statements, that it's an option for them, as well as a chart that shows them if they qualify or not. And it's actually become a little bit easier to go through the application. They still have to present some bank statements, tax returns, but we walk through the process and it's pretty easy. But when they receive their statement, there's a chart on the back that gives them a real quick glance if they think they might qualify or not, and then we certainly encourage them to come in and have the conversation. If not, we can at least maybe reduce their payments or set them up for payments. Yeah, it is trending upward though, just because the regulations have gotten a little bit leaner.
Is there any, does Medicare or Medicaid step in to pay any of that, or is that solely on the backs of Broadwater County citizens?
Solely on the backs of Broadwater County citizens. We do sit down and try to encourage and help those sign up for Medicaid if they're eligible, so that at least we can get help there. So that's the step, immediate step, when you're also signing up for charity care. See if you're eligible for that. So the next round, maybe there's some Medicaid help. But yeah, the first round is on us, citizens.
Okay. But it's an opportunity for conversation,
Yeah.
at least to help fill some of those gaps.
Correct. And we run about 11% of uninsured people, so actually there's quite a few that are insured. It's but people still qualify for charity care because of the high deductibles. So just because they're insured doesn't mean they can afford their deductible.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see if there's anything else we have to move on to here. Waiting on Nicole.
Yeah. And the public hearing wouldn't be till 10:30. May I bring up a subject that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, since we have a few minutes?
Yeah.
We talked about the weed board's request to go from a 5-member board to a 7-member board, and decided to keep things status quo so that we could help them focus on the weed management plan to maintain their state funding. We didn't necessarily include it in the minutes because it wasn't required. It was more conversation. But I think it's important to mention and ask Ann to include it in the minutes this time, that we did talk about this a couple of weeks ago, and that's what we came to.
I agree, I appreciate that, thank you.
Absolutely.
So we maintain that board, the 5-member board.
Yeah.
So could we go ahead and do this 11:15 with Ed?
Mm-hmm.
Do you wanna go ahead with your proclamation of 2019 mitigation season?
Okay, this is a proclamation for the mitigation season for 2019. We did one last year for Pat McKelvey, it was the same thing. So they sent out a deal, this year is for Rocky Infinger from Wolf Creek. And I'm not sure how everything needs to be written up, but this is the copy that I've got. If you guys need to put it on your letterhead or whatever to do that, just to claim I think it's February 13th is the day that they're gonna present the award and stuff for it. So
Nice.
we can do that. And doing stories. That's fire though.
Can I ask that you read that so that everybody can hear?
Would you like me to read it? Broadwater County Proclamation in special recognition of Rocky Infinger for his many years of service to the people of the Tri-County area and this county, and his service in reducing wildland fire fuels, and proclaiming the beginning of the 2019 fire fuel mitigation season. whereas wildfires in Montana have had and will continue to have significant impact on the lives, property, safety, and well-being of every Montanan, and whereas the residents and property owners of Broadwater County share in the responsibility for making their home and community fire safe, and whereas the residents and property owners of Broadwater County must be prepared for a wildfire event with an evacuation plan, and whereas the residents and property owners of Broadwater County must prepare their home and property to survive a wildfire, and whereas the residents and property owners of Broadwater County must act now to mitigate the effects of wildfire on their homes through hazardous fuels reduction, ignition resistant construction, existent resistant landscaping, and maintenance of the same. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Broadwater County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim Wednesday, February 13, 2019 as Rocky Impagir Day in Broadwater County, and marks the beginning of the annual fire fuel mitigation season in the Tri-County area.
I move that we adopt the proclamation as presented.
I'll second the motion to approve the proclamation.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the proclamation for the 2019 fire mitigation season for Rocky Impagir. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
We could probably just date this and sign it and make it official. Would you prefer it? We don't generally do resolutions on letterhead. Would you prefer
That's
it?
fine. No, not necessarily.
Okay.
That works fine.
This is
If that's all right with you guys.
Today's the 4th.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Ed.
Ed.
Now I guess I gotta go.
Bernadette, are you just here for the hearing? You don't have any COS or anything?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Nicole said she'll be down shortly. She she didn't think we should speed up the public hearing since it was advertised for 10:30 in case people were coming, but she'll be right down.
Okay.
You want to do mine? I don't think anyone's covered mine.
Okay, yeah, we can go ahead and real quick and do that. This is for the lease agreement based on local mart rate for county-owned modular building.
One thing before we start that I think needs to be mentioned is the summary of these meetings has been riddled with misinformation. And this week, it said this was the county clinic. It's not. It is not the county clinic. It's a separate for-profit business. So I just wanted to make that clarification. There was some confusion last week, so just to put that on the table.
Now, what, that wasn't a summary prepared by me. What
No.
summary is that?
The one in the newspaper.
Oh, gotcha. So, I received and sent to you, information I got from Debbie Kelly on Doc Campbell's, compensation as health officer. Then I got an email from you asking to wait before me engaging with them, so I did not send
No.
this to them.
No, not wait, because I think this needs to be done, but just to get more information. So there was some discussion at the Board of Health on that subject, and then you had also mentioned maybe using it as an exchange a year and a half ago when you were in the middle of negotiations. But I think now it's kind of, yeah, that's the history. We need to know it, we need to have it as part of the discussion, but not necessarily wait on anything.
Okay, well, I didn't send it to them Friday because I got your email that you wanted some other information provided.
More,
What would you like, what other information should I provide then, I guess?
well, I guess I'd like to know where you're going. If you're going to, you had mentioned maybe just trading, the $5,000 that we pay for the public health officer for the use of a county building. And I don't think that complies with MCA, so I don't think that can be something that we talk about. And when you were mentioning, well, it wasn't paid for these years, I think you need to have the why it wasn't paid for those years as part of the discussion, not just come out with, well, the county didn't pay, because there's more to it than that.
Okay, well, and that was what they had said they were gonna, way back, prior to this most recent round, that's what they were advocating as their offer for this lease. So, I don't know, that may be a dead thing, I don't know. This was the information that was requested before they then sent their counteroffer. So I hadn't sent to them yet, but I'm gonna do that today, since, if that's fine. And then, I don't know what they're gonna say, honestly. Because I don't. So, Doc Campbell's attorney does not use email, so we either have to do mail, phone calls, or personal meetings, so that slowed it down a little bit, or at least this last conversation. So, what other information would you like me to add? I was just gonna go off the numbers from Debbie, and I'm assuming that there's gonna be a discussion about that before it's final.
Well, I think the two need to be kept separate. I think that, and this was part of the discussion for the health, that I think we should be putting out an RFP for the public health officer. Because it's over the $2,500 threshold, it shouldn't be just that we work with one person. It should be open to the full community, the full county. So I think that issue should be separate. The building, the lease of the building is one issue. The public health officer is a second issue. And the two, I think, need to be decoupled and two separate issues.
Okay. And are you guys gonna proceed with that process through the Board of Health then?
I would like to bring it up in our next meeting.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
I mean, I think this thing's getting simpler. I mean, we're not doing this big exchange, move away plan. It's just gonna be a simple lease and move on, so. I just wasn't sure what you were referring to, so I didn't give them this information on Friday, so I'll do that
Okay.
today, and we'll tell them, here's what the commission would like to do, and if they have counteroffer, then I'll bring that back to you, and go from there.
One thing that we didn't talk about last week, that popped into my head is, we included that building in our insurance, and I don't know what that increase is going to be, but I'm not sure it should be the taxpayers that pay that increase, or it should be included in our lease, so that at least there's some responsibility for that, even though we're requiring the leaser, the leasee, to have their own insurance.
Yeah, so I thought last time we talked that was included in their expenses.
Okay.
Insurance, utilities, maintenance, I'll have to look, I have a list.
Okay. I don't know that it's in that draft lease, so we just want to include that.
Okay. All right, so I'll move forward on that. Did you receive a copy of this drug task force MOU?
Yes, we didn't get on,
That's
the
fine.
agenda, but we'll have it on the agenda for the 19th, I believe.
For the 19th, is that your next meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have NACO next week.
And I'm pretty sure that's fine. I think they wanted it back by around the 25th of February. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Excuse me, I'm really wanted it, so.
Okay. So it sounds good. So, yeah, and then we can, Sheriff or I can talk about it that day, but it's not really any change from prior years. There's a little explanation if you want on, there's, depending on what agencies participate in the case, if there's a forfeiture, there's a certain amount of revenue sharing. Our drug task force is, I think it's one of the most successful in the state. We're growing. Other additional agencies and counties are joining in, so. But the problem is their resources are almost entirely focused in the Helena and the Bozeman areas. So we occasionally do some work here, but I mean, the activity is so big in those areas that it's pretty hard for them to get them here for developing cases, so yeah, that'll be.
So when we have a seizure or forfeiture on a drug case here that doesn't involve those, does all of that stay in Broadwater County? We don't have to share that with the rest of the task force. I mean, if we just
Yeah.
stumble upon some guy on the highway, that just comes to Broadwater County. That doesn't have to get split with the reserve task force.
That's correct. Yeah, we had one last fall where we collected, what was that amount? Was it $7,000?
Yeah.
$7,000, and then there was one 2 years before that that was actually a high patrol traffic stop, and that ended up with, I think, a $3,000 forfeiture that we also got all of that, I believe. So, even though it was high patrol, it wasn't a task force, multi-agency effort. So.
But we'll have that on the agenda for the 19th and get that signed.
Sounds good. So you don't have a meeting next week?
No,
Okay.
it's NACO next week.
Okay. I'm going to send you an email. There's a couple more things to ask you to put on the agenda for this Toston Streets issue. I'm trying to get that thing finalized. The tax resolution, are you still waiting on me on that, or the tax forgiveness for the nonprofits?
Yeah.
One in Toston and one in
For the-
Rivers.
For the church.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think I'll have like 5 things on the agenda that day. So I'll send you an email before Wednesday so you can, well, I guess you've got time since it's 2 weeks. And then, I think that's it for now. I got your email about Granite County. I'll send you guys that letter.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
I hadn't heard from them before that email from both of you on Friday, so. Okay.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks.
Corey.
Okay, we will recess the county commissioners meeting and open a public hearing to close or abandon the county road easement Big Sky Drive between blocks 20 and 21 of Springville Town Site in northeast quarter of section 23 in township 7 north, range 1 east. Do you have the paperwork on this, Nicole?
I have the petition, but I don't have any public comment to add to it. Do you want to see the map?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this shows the portion of it that they're requesting to abandon here. You want a copy, Jim? That was small one. And this also is a petition form, which I know you received a copy of it. This is showing aerial photography of the area, so you can see there's no other development. would be affected by it. Do you want a copy of this?
If anybody wants to see this copy too, you're welcome to it.
I have extras here too.
Is there any public comment on this issue? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing after the county commissioners meeting for a decision to close and abandon the county road easement, Big Sky Drive.
I will move to grant the abandonment and closure of Big Sky Drive between blocks 20 and 21 of Springville Township in northeast quarter of section 23 in Township 7 North, Range 1 East.
I'll second the motion to the abandonment of Big Sky Drive.
Motion been made and second to abandon portion of Big Sky Drive. Mentioned is all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Generally, abandoning a road would be a really big deal. Not this time. It's a no-brainer. So I'm glad this was brought to us. Thanks.
Can I ask a question on this? Is it possible to deed that piece of property to the Heinemans? Or do you want, how do you want to look at the ownership of the property?
Would you provide a little more context to your question? What's the
Yes.
thinking?
Well, my thinking is, this will be unowned property. If it's deeded to the adjacent landowner, at least you may be getting some tax dollars from it. Or do you want it just to be unowned? They can use it for their driveway access.
It seems to me in the future, 20 years from now, we could be entering some kind of a quagmire we don't see if there's no ownership to that property. If there's a land dispute, neighbor dispute, all of a sudden the county could be thrown into the middle of it because if there's no owner, essentially it's ours. So I would prefer deeding it to adjacent landowners, Heinemans in this case, and then that way they have more control and authority over how to put in the driveway and don't have to be stuck with working with us. Not that we're not pleasant, but let's get the government out of it.
So are Heinemann's adjacent landowners on 21 and 20?
And to the north.
And, okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm looking at this map here and it doesn't show it on this map.
Doesn't show what, I'm sorry?
That it's a separate piece of, I mean, it does here. I mean, you can see it from this view, but it
Sure.
doesn't show that there's a separation of these plots right now.
Oh, okay, I think because the dash lines, when they had to overlay with the legal info there. With the meets and bounds, but this actually is a parcel here, this is block 20, this is block 21, and then Big Sky Drive would be similar to what you see here. And I think it's simply a formatting discrepancy because of the meets and bounds overlay.
Right. So then what we're talking about is deeding these portions to these adjacent.
I suppose they could have the option of doing that, or they could deed it to this piece here. The dilemma they might run into, as soon as you move the boundary lines on any of these existing blocks in Springville, they are now subject to DEQ review. So they may not want to move those boundary lines. I would leave that up to them to make that decision. I simply wanted to know from the county standpoint, I think it would be beneficial if it was owned property, if someone owned it for the obvious reasons you stated and for tax purposes. You know, I know that that's not, it's 0.42 acres, I believe, so it's not a lot of tax dollars, but it's better than
It'll buy some pencils.
right?
Yes, pretty
Yeah,
much.
I'd like to also say that by incorporating it to the north, to that lot, it takes away an easement where there could be arguments later. They would own it, so they just would own their driveway. And so it wouldn't be, if you put the ownership to the blocks, then there's the easement situation, and we never know down the road what kind of arguments can come up with easements. So if it was owned, then there wouldn't be any arguments later down the road.
Makes sense.
So your suggestion would be that we would abandon this road and deed the property for it to Lot B5?
Correct. I think that would just be the safest, because then there would be no easement needed,
Okay.
no creation of any easement.
I guess the other, yes.
So ordinarily, when there is an easement for a public road or street, property owners on each side really own the underlying land to the center point of that, whatever that public right of way is, and you really have an easement that's over the portion of the dominant state, meaning the landowners on each side. So if you abandon a street, road, easement of any kind, it automatically, it didn't transfer ownership because it was already, the underlying ground was already owned by that owner. It simply relieves them of the burden of the state. The reason it's a little unclear in this case is because at the time that this, the time that Springville was laid out and platted, a couple things were going on. One is the land that it was platted upon was basically public domain land. And when there weren't fee land owners, that it was then basically, it pre-existed that plat. And when that happens, it got a little more complicated here because Springville then did not become an incorporated city. And so the county is basically acting as the local government in place of a municipality because there's no municipality. So in abandoning that, it's unclear. This is the issue I've been struggling with Toston roads. That's why it's taken me so long. It's unclear what other owner on earth would have that land if that easement suddenly went away. The dominant view in the world of property owners is that the owner on each side should own to the center point. It wouldn't matter if they're the same owner or different owners. Those lots basically should own to the center point of the abandoned street, so it is their land. There's kind of this stray view out there that if you incorporated it in a manner where you said, even if we sell every lot, the county still owns those roads, those underlying streets, not just the easement, but the actual fee land, then even if you abandon it, the county owns it. It's not clear from the record of establishment of Springville that that was ever the county's intention. It was Jefferson County that did it at the time, not Broadwater. So I think it would be a hard case to say that the county actually owns that land underneath the road. It's possible, but I think it's a harder case to make. I think the prevailing view among property right law is that the Heinemann's already owned to the center line of that street that was just abandoned.
Right, so if it's determined that that's the case, then would it be subject to the DEQ review?
Subject to the what?
DEQ review.
Well, if they're doing a subdivision, then any land included in that subdivision is still subject to requiring both the county's review of subdivision regulations, et cetera, as well as a DEQ review. It wouldn't be treated any differently than the land, than their lot. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess from what you're saying, that it's possible that they could already own that piece, right?
Right.
Each landowner on each side could
Right.
possibly already own that piece.
Likely, yeah.
Likely.
I
So-
thought all Springville streets were county property.
It's, this is the issue I've been dealing with. It's not clear. It's not clear, honestly.
I was
It's-
told that if I attach anything to block 20 and 21, that I would have to go through DEQ review on those because they're grandfathered. They have special grandfather rights. So I do not want to change that grandfathering because of their size. And I want to attach it to that track above it, to the north.
That's why I'm asking this question to Corey,
Okay.
so that I'm clear on that before we proceed.
There's just, the record is not, her argument isn't necessarily wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the problem with this, because it was just the way it was done, and then it wasn't actually incorporated into town, so it's a little messy.
If there is no record of ownership, then you could go either way, it seems to me, because we're either assigning ownership to those two lots or we're assigning ownership to the county. Either way, that property has to have ownership somewhere.
Right.
And if it would be cleaner to go ahead and give that ownership to lot, you can't see it at this distance, but to the northern lot,
B5?
B5, aren't we just streamlining the process, making it easier for the person who owns all three lots right now anyway, and alleviating a problem 20 years down the road? So are we in any kind of legal jeopardy if we go ahead and make that change of ownership today? Just so that they have some clarity when they leave this room.
Basically what whenever you do something like this, the question is, who would have standing to challenge this, right? I don't know who would have standing to challenge it. Potentially DEQ, but I doubt that they're gonna do that over this tiny little thing. So, first of all, there's support for either interpretation of this. Her interpretation of it, which is something that I have at one point, and have in the course of this process communicated that it's possible that the county owns all of those roads and there's no underlying fee ownership by the adjacent owners. Going back through the record and doing more research, this would be one of those long, expensive, pointless lawsuits to figure out the right answer.
Right.
So
And
there's
that's why I
sufficient.
want to make sure that the people on the adjoining lots on each side are going to come back and challenge this at a later time and say that's our property.
Well, if they own it, though, it doesn't matter, right?
Is there homes on these pieces of property now?
On
No.
21 and 20?
No.
No, there's no homes.
Okay.
And the Heinemans own all of them, correct?
That is correct.
So it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So
Mary,
then the second question is there some kind of a boundary alignment regulation that would prevent that street being assigned to B5? I don't know what I would ask either Nicole or Bernadette as more of an expert than me on that issue.
Mary, what would be your preference? What would you like?
I want it attached to B5.
Okay. So since you would have the standing for lots 20 and 21, it would be an easy question for me to say, would you sue the county if we did attach this abandoned road to property to B5?
No.
Thank you. All right. Any questions from our two land use experts in the room?
No, I think Bernadette's correct. We have enough easement issues, and I know the sheriff's office can attest to that when they have to respond to calls on trespassing when there's an overlaying easement. I think this just makes it so much cleaner for future lot owners. If it's owned property, their access, they own their access to the main road.
And I agree, for clarity purposes, it would be best to not leave a lingering, either unclaimed piece of property, next thing you know, you have squatters out there in tents or whatever. And then secondly, when you think about in these decisions, it's who would be sitting in the plaintiff's chair to challenge this. And I think that chair's empty in this case. Just keep in mind then for future decisions, if we do something similar down the road, you'll need to be, fair and consistent in how you apply, although the facts may change.
Well, I think for me though, I still would want something signed by Heinemann's saying that they won't challenge this at a later date.
We're meeting on Wednesday. Could we postpone this till Wednesday? And that would give Mary and Bernadette a chance to get you the documentation you're looking for and give them the peace of mind that this isn't gonna linger for 2 weeks. Does that work with you guys?
I'm okay with that for me.
Okay.
And I believe we could bring that deed forward at that time too,
Okay.
for the commission to look at and possibly sign.
So we will
Sounds good.
table this decision on the abandonment of Big Sky Drive until Wednesday?
Just the property deed, because we
Just
already
the
abandoned it.
property, okay.
Yeah.
Do you wanna keep that big map, or do you want me to take it and bring it back with me? Okay.
And if we could do that right at 10 before our working meeting, I think that would be good for everybody to not have to wait on us.
I have an issue from a criminal case that's happened over the weekend. Is it all right if I take off now?
Yeah.
Go ahead and make a comment.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Cory.
Thanks.
That petition to abandon has to be filed in our office.
I believe the commissioners have the original. I have a copy.
We're going to recess the county commissioners meeting for a public hearing to declare an infrastructure deficient area in the Wheaton certified designated places. You need to read this resolution out.
Yeah.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Broadwater County, Montana, declaring an infrastructure deficient area exists within Broadwater County, Montana, in the industrial and commercial area known as Wheatland. The investment in the infrastructure in that area is necessary in the interest of public health, safety, or welfare of the residents of Broadwater County. Whereas the state of Montana has recognized that portions of its cities, towns, and counties are deficient in infrastructure improvements for targeted economic development and therefore constitute impediment to the growth of infrastructure, intensive value-adding economic development, and whereas the creation of infrastructure in support of value-added economic development is a matter of state policy and state concern because the state and its local governments have continued to suffer economic dislocation due to lack of value-adding industries. And whereas the Board of Commissioners of Broadwater County, the Commission, and Montana Business Assistance Connection, the MBAC, have become concerned that the inability to address infrastructure deficiencies in this area have stymied the growth, retention of secondary value-adding industries. And whereas on behalf of the Commission, the statement of infrastructure deficiency, copy attached, has been prepared to document infrastructure deficiencies in the industrial and commercial area known as Wheatland. For the purpose of this review, the Wheatland area is generally described as slightly more than 1,000 acres located along U.S. Highway 287, just north of the Interstate 90 Highway 287 intersection. Most of the acreage is located on the east side of U.S. Highway 287 and extends from I-90 north to Old Town Road. The strip comprised of less than 100 acres is located along the west side of U.S. Highway 287 and extends from I-90 north to Wheatland Road. This review includes portions of Section 10, 15, and 16, Township 2 North, Range 1 East, PMM, Broadwater County, Montana. And found transportation infrastructure. Interior roads are inadequately constructed and maintained to support heavy truck traffic. Highway design upgrades are needed to address future increase in traffic levels and change in traffic patterns. The area lacks container or goods transloading provisions. The area has inadequate pedestrian elements and limited multi-modal recreation facilities. Water and wastewater infrastructure relying on individual on-site septic and water is problematic. Centralized systems to address sewer, potable water, and fire suppression water are currently unavailable. Life safety. The area lacks fire service facilities and an adequate water supply for firefighting purposes. Law enforcement resources in the proximity to the area are lacking. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Broadwater County, Montana as follows. Section 1. The Commission finds that infrastructure deficiencies exist within the industrial and commercial area known as Wheatland, and that infrastructure investment in this area pursuant to the Montana Urban Renewal Law is necessary and desirable in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Broadwater County, and that this investment in infrastructure be made with a commitment to quality improvement and commitment to property owner and community involvement in decision making. Attached is a statement of infrastructure deficiency. On behalf of the Commission, the MBAC shall submit for public hearing and consideration resolution to create a zoning district pursuant to 76-201 MCA for the industrial and commercial area known as Wheatland. Section 5, on behalf of the commission, the MBAC shall submit for public hearing and consideration an ordinance for the creation of a targeted economic development district for the industrial and commercial areas known as Wheatland. Section 6, that this resolution of necessity shall become effective immediately upon its passage and approval by the commission. Is there a public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move to the decision to declare an infrastructure deficient area in the Wheatland Certified Designated Place. There's discussion.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
So, Brian Obert, the Executive Director for MBAC, Montana Business Assistance Connection. This goes all the way back to the last growth policy, Jim Richards, who put it in. We were just starting to get some of the development coming into this Wheatland area, and it specifically said because of the growth going on in Bozeman, that Townsend or Broadwater County would be able to actually expand, especially industrial or business growth in this area. This is following on from that for many years. Just the conversation that we have had of creating a public sewer system has brought at least 3, if not 5, very specific inquiries into additional businesses locating to this area, and we have at least 3 more that are in consideration. So at this point, the Eiger tract that is across the street, that is north of Wheat, Montana, has a buy-sell, and I'm understanding within the next few days will be sold. We know there's somebody interested in potentially in the travel lodge, because of the sewer system relieves the issues of the heavy clays down in that area. If that sale were to go through, they would be putting additional infrastructure and actual more taxable value in their property. The bakery itself is running at capacity or beyond capacity for their existing sewer system. If we can relieve their issues with their sewer system, they may be expanding their facility over time. So for the general nature of what a targeted economic development district is, we're meeting a lot of those points. We have been a little quiet at this point because we've been working closely with Bridger Brewing, specifically trying to help them gain access to funding to be able to build their brewery. And at this point, we do have 2 banks who have a letter of commitment to Bridger Brewing. So we are moving forward. And even within that, their original estimates, with the assumption that the sewer system goes in as using their taxes to build it, they've now expanded some of their expectation on expense is now going over $10 million. And they have a partner that may be putting another $3.5 million in on top of that.
That's the brewery portion?
That's the brewery portion. We were looking at about an $8 million investment originally, and we're north of 10 already on that, where they're at right now, with the assumption that the sewer system comes in. What I do want to make the commission very aware of is right now we have enough water. Everybody who is there has a public water system, the ones that are already in existence. They have their water right and a public water system. Bridger Brewing will have enough water to run their brewery at this point for an estimated 5 to 7 years. At some point in the future, if this does take off, we will probably be including a public water component. But what's nice about this is the way we're designing the system, they are in collaboration with us to then offer to you, is that this would be something that we can phase in. If we create this it'll be a water sewer district, we create a public sewer system, we should be good. If it is just Bridger Brewing coming in for their long-term goals, we'll probably be just fine. These other businesses that are looking at the area, if they actually decide to invest and move forward, they will start to remove the capacity that we have legally by water right. And at that point, we should be able to go back to the state and the feds to actually ask for public or financial grant assistance to go after a public water system. What is nice about that is we have enough capacity that we won't make that leap until we know they either have or are going to invest. So we're kind of in a fairly interesting spot, and a sweet spot right now is that just by providing the public sewer assistance, we should be able to move forward for quite some time. If this does become a